Hey, how's it going? LIFliesMike here, and today we're going to be tying one of my favorite Albie flies, developed by an Eastern Long Island fly tyer, Richard Regan. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to say Regan. And it's a great fly. It's very interesting and incorporates using a hot glue gun. So it's a lot of fun. That's one thing you got to do. You can pick one up at your local hardware store, and you can tie it in all sorts of different colors. We have some pink versions, pearl versions, chartreuse, and I like tying these in size 1 odds and size 1. You can go a little bit smaller, but I tend to fish my Albie flies a little bit bigger than most people do. But hopefully you enjoy, and we stream every Wednesday and Friday at twitch.tv/blockwizard, where we tied a bunch of these the other night. And if you enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, all that jazz, and let me know what you think down below. Let's get right into it. Little disclaimer, obviously we're using a hot glue gun, so make sure you're careful. You can easily burn yourself with it. Don't leave it plugged in when you're not tying. Just be careful. I should obviously don't need to say it, but for YouTube's sake, be careful. All right, let's get into the materials. First off, we're going to be using some Danville 210 denier Flat Wax Nylon. You're going to need some Krystal Flash. You can use Flash Boo. This is H2O twist from Fly Tyer's Dungeon. It's just a little cheaper alternative. Then we have some Lateral Scale. This is a great material. I use this in all of my surf candies. For the Hackle, you're going to need some whiting American Rooster cape. This is great. You can pick this up at saltwaterflies.com. Great product, and Chris always has a very good selection of white hackle. You can use Chinese saddle hackle if you'd like. You're going to need some Krystal Estaz. This is just some pink Krystal Estaz. I like using the shorter, smaller Estaz on these flies. Again, you can use pearl, chartreuse, orange, all sorts of different colors. You're going to need some stick-on eyes. These are, I believe, 3/8 diameter. I'll be using the Mustad Big Game C70 SD. It's probably one of my favorite hooks. We're going to be tying these in a size 1 today, so on a little bit smaller side. My preferred Albie hook. And of course, you're going to need a hot glue gun. This is really the proper way of tying these flies. We have just a cheap hot glue gun here, and make sure you get a bunch of refillable sticks because you're going to want to tie a lot. All right, so I'm going to plug my hot glue gun in so this can start heating up. And while that's happening, we're going to get one of our Mustad Big Games in a size 1. So we're going to start off, and we're just going to lay a little thread base down. Now, some people may tie this differently, but this is how I tie it. And it's worked very well. It's a very durable fly. I've caught many bass, bluefish, false albacore with it. When selecting some hackle, you can see here this patch is a little ripped up, but I've been tying a lot of flies with it. We're going to be going for some of the webbier hackle, not too large, but we're going for something that has some body to it. And the reason is when we glue these on, we want these fibers to be sticking off the side like so, to give it a nice profile and give it a little bit of action. So first things first, we're going to take a little bit of hot glue. I'm going to wipe that off. And we're just going to go light. You don't want to use too much when you're doing this because it can build up pretty quickly. Make sure it's nice and hot. And we're just going to press that on there. All right, next one. Now here, a little side note, I'm gonna go a little bit farther back with the glue so it goes onto the last hackle. That way when we press these in, the hackle will be somewhat joined, just makes it a little bit more durable. Line these up, press this down, and again, you always want to glue it on there so the stem of the hackle is going parallel with the hook shank. We're just going to tie this down. I go a little bit past the hook, the bend of the hook. All right, so we have our hackle in there. Now we're just going to take a little bit of Krystal Flash. I'm going to go with 4 pieces of Krystal Flash. I already have some cut up. Got our Krystal Flash. I'm just gonna loop it like so, go over here, and then I can kind of control it, and we're gonna tie this on either side of the hackle. So now we're gonna go with some Estaz. I'm actually gonna go with some pink here. I like the pink color with the white. And again, I mostly tie these with all white hackle, as that's really the only good consistent color of the whiting American Rooster I can get. So we have our Estaz tied in like so, and now we're going to take a little bit of this hot glue, not too much, run this right along top. And the great thing about doing this, as we palmer this, I'll explain. The great thing about doing this is that the fly is very durable. There's hot glue sections along the whole way of the fly, so certainly adds for durability. So I'm just going to wrap that a couple times and then cut that. We're just going to wrap this forward a little. Okay, you can see we have the Estaz, we have our hackle in. So now we need to go with 2 hackle on top. So we're essentially going to have this hackle sitting like so, parallel over the Estaz. All right, so we have 2 hackle here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a slight amount of glue parallel and back all the way back onto the feather. And again, be careful with it, and still while it's hot, we're going to take our hackle and we're going to press down onto the hot glue along it. Now be careful, you don't want to have too much glue on there, it'll bleed onto the feather, but this is kind of exactly where we want it. And now what I'm going to do is just going to cut this right behind the hook eye and tie that, make sure it's still nice and in line like so. Now we'll repeat that on this side, again trying to be careful with the hot glue and not get it, you know, all over the place. Try and keep it as neat as possible. Kind of make sure that lays on there. And for instance, if you don't like how much of a gap there is behind, because we're tying the feathers outwards, what you can do is you can always take a little bit of glue and stick it right on in between. You can kind of adjust the flare. Now the whole idea behind the flare is that it, underwater, when you're stripping the fly, those are under tension, so it's kind of creating some disturbance underwater, which will help, you know, signal a fish to it that maybe it's an injured bait fish or something like that. So again, we're going to tie this off. I've had a lot of requests on how to tie this fly. There's already an amazing video out there right now with the creator of this fly, but I thought maybe I'd do something with a little bit of a different angle and maybe go a little bit more in depth. So now what we're going to do is, again, being very careful, you can see we have our hackle sticking up off of the Estaz. We want to make sure we leave that. So being very careful, we're going to take our hot glue gun and we're going to run a very light bead along the stem of the hackle, all the way back like we did last time, back onto the hackle itself, past the bend of the hook. Then we're going to take our lateral scale and we're just going to wet our thumb or index finger here. We're just going to press this where it's on that hot glue, kind of like so. Pretty simple. It helps when you wet your index finger so the hot glue doesn't stick to it. And again, being very careful, you can even kind of wet this hackle to keep it out of the way. We're going to run another bead from the front all the way back, very light bead along the stem of the hackle. I'm just using my other index finger here to keep it steady because I don't have the steadiest hands. Again, run this all the way back like so. Trim it at the back of the hackle, kind of like so. You can see it's pretty easy. If it's not perfectly in line with the hackle, it's all right. This one I was off a little, so just making myself feel better is all. Now you want to make sure you wrap onto the lateral scale so it gets nice and secure. kind of like so. Now we're almost done. Now we just need to whip finish here. I'm gonna throw a couple whip finishes on here. We're gonna go with some stick-on eyes. These are around, I don't know, 3/8, maybe a little bit smaller. You can go with gold, go with silver. What we're gonna do is we're gonna apply a very light dot right at the front. Again, try not to get any glue on any of the hackle or the fly other than where we want it. And then we're just gonna press these down, kind of leave a slight gap in between the hook eye. All right, so we have our eyes on there, but we still need to glue the head slightly. Now again, kind of wet our index finger here and kind of push this hackle back. What we're gonna do is we're gonna build a head with the hot glue gun itself. So you need to be very careful here. Again, I'm gonna steady my hand here. And I'm just essentially filling up the gap in between the eyes here. I don't wanna go too heavy now. We're gonna go on top of the eyes. Fill in the gap behind the eyes. Get this last eye here nice and covered. Again, being careful not to cover that hackle up. All right, came out pretty well. Now we're just gonna let this dry. If you're impatient, you can always blow on it. And that's that. That's the Albie Whore. It's pretty simple. Once it dries off, you know, it takes about 15-20 seconds. Kind of make sure it's nice and snug. You can clean up the hook eye. I'm just going to heat up a bodkin here. We have a little bit of Estaz, but that's nothing serious. And you can tie them in all sorts of colors too. We have a pearl and a size 1/0, another 1/0 with chartreuse, and another 1/0 with some orange Estaz. So you can play around with the colors and get the sort of result that you're looking for pretty easily. So that's that. Pretty easy fly developed by a fellow East End fly tyer, and it's a great fly. I always keep a couple in different colors and sizes in my fly box. I have to admit I mostly fish bucktail surf candies, we call them inlet candies, or synthetic surf candies, supreme hair and such, for most of the season, but it's always fun to put something else on, and this is a great fly, and hopefully you learned a thing or two. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and you can check out our Twitch fly tying channel. Again, I appreciate it, and as always, tight lines and good luck this fall.